Alrighty, folks, we are here joined once again by the co-founder and current chairman of the African People's Socialist Party, Omali Yeshitela. Omali, it's great to speak to you again.
Thank you so much. It's hard for me to describe how significant I think it is that we're having this discussion when so much work is being done by the traditional colonial capitalist media to keep the people from knowing about this case, and which is a threat to the rights of all the people here. So I really appreciate being able to be with you.
Of course.
We appreciate you joining us. Thank you.
Yes, it was great talking to you. We interviewed you a couple months ago, and we definitely wanted to make a point to do it again. And this time, obviously, this takes place under very urgent circumstances. So I want to cut right to the chase here with our call to action. There is going to be a march and rally on Saturday, August 31st at 11 a.m. at the Uhuru House in St. Petersburg, Florida. The address is up here on the screen, 1245 18th Avenue South Street, 18th Avenue South in St. Petersburg. And this is the Eventbrite link, but you could sign up and RSVP to attend this march and rally at handsoffuhuru.org/march. So, Chairman, do you want to just give people an overview of the case, the timeline of the trial, and the importance of this action on Saturday?
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you again. And for those people who are not familiar with the case, on July 29, 2022, my wife and I were in St. Louis preparing for the day. And at 5 o'clock in the morning, pre-dawn in St. Louis, this noise came from outside the house, a loudspeaker declaring that this was the FBI, come out with your hands up and your hands empty. And then after having said that, these loud explosions started to go off around our house, and we were to discover in the house too, in the back stairwell of the house. And so I went downstairs, asked my wife to stay there and call people and let them know we were under attack. The phone was jammed. She couldn't do that. So I went downstairs and was greeted by an armored personnel carrier in front of my house. And these military forces armed with assault weapons, with laser targeting devices mounted on them and hitting me in the chest. So this was when we were aware that this case was beginning, that something was happening to us beyond the typical kind of government intervention that we expect all the time. And so while they were doing this at my home in the northern St. Louis, which is where the majority of the African people live, in southern St. Louis, we have another office, which is where the majority of white people live, and they attacked our center there. And we learned this after we were permitted by these military forces to leave my home and then to drive away. And we went to the Solidarity Center that we have and found FBI agents surrounding that. They had invaded, they had done things similar. They had used battering rams, knocked down doors, taken equipment and phones and other kinds of communication devices, recording devices, tons and tons of stuff. They stayed from 6 to 8 hours in these buildings in my home and in the Solidarity Center there. They did the same thing at the same time in St. Petersburg, Florida, where I'm sitting right now. My house here, they invaded, although the house was empty because we live in St. Louis. And they did the same thing here. They invaded our center, the Uhuru House here in St. Petersburg, Florida. They knocked down every door in the building. They used battering rams. They stole all kinds of materials. They went into our archives, took stuff out of that. They put our radio station temporarily off the air. It was just a very violent kind of assault. And then they said they were doing this because they wanted to serve a search warrant because we were to be listed in an indictment. We were mentioned in an indictment that was coming down that same day in Tampa, Florida, against a Russian national. And so that was on July 29th, 2022. And then 9 months later, it took 9 months. Then we are indicted. And we are indicted because we are declared to be Russian agents, that we no longer have agency, that the work that we do is being done for Russia. I went to Moscow and therefore I became some kind of agent. I protested, I united in opposition to the war that was initiated against Russia and Ukraine, using with the U.S. and NATO using Ukraine as the vehicle to continue a war that's been going on against Russia for more than 100 years, starting with the U.S. and all the colonial powers, including Japan, invasion of the Soviet Russia, as they characterized it at the time, in 1918. So that's been an ongoing, unrelenting kind of war, and I acknowledged that, and also said how that was connected to the entire colonial question. So that was evidence of my being a Russian agent. It's a Russian agent because we ran for office in 2017, 2019. We ran candidates for office in St. Petersburg, Florida, with a population that approximates something like 300,000 people at most. And it was determined that the Russians paid for this. We ran on the platform of reparations for African people and against gentrification. So the Russians paid for this. This is further evidence. We had a Russian national who is also one of these indicted persons now, had him to appear shortly. Well, first of all, I should say that I came out in opposition to the U.S. aggression in Russia something like a day or two publicly before the so-called invasion happened. And within a week after that, then we get this attack in July on our houses and things like that. So it's a bunch of stuff like that. And it presupposes that history began at this moment in 2014 or 2015. We're not sure exactly when, but it seems like 2014, 2015. This is the beginning of history. Doesn't make any difference that in addition to having gone to Moscow, that I had traveled all around the world on the same mission to win unity for the Black Liberation Movement and in the isolation of this movement. It doesn't matter that that's what I've been doing. It doesn't matter that there's a whole solidarity movement that we created for that purpose here in the United States that functions in something like 130 cities, mostly white people. It doesn't matter. No history, none of that matters. What matters is that now that I'm working for the Russians, this is where history begins with this fabricated relationship that we have with Russia. So that's the kind of thing that we've been dealing with, and it's been quite serious. Banks have sanctioned us. Banks we've been working with for more than 20 years. You know, suddenly they said they wanted they wanted the payment for a mortgage that about $80,000 that had to be paid in 2 weeks. They shut down people's personal accounts and things like that. The church across the street from my house was burned, torched. This is where we had it under contract to put another program there. We have something like 52 economic development programs that exist for promoting the independence and their economic development programs. So all of this stuff has come under assault as well. So we're fighting. And on the 31st, as it's been suggested, it's going to be a really, really, really important gathering of people coming into St. Petersburg, Florida, which is, again, one of the sites that came under attack. But it's also right across the bridge from Tampa, Florida, where the federal trial is going to occur on the 3rd of September. So all kinds of people are coming in. It's going to be an extraordinary mobilization there and on August 31st. And we're calling on people to join. Come on in.
Well, Chairman Yeshitela, the last time you were on, we got a little bit into this. In many respects, a group like yours evokes the 60s, the 70s, some of the Black Panther Party. We just got back from covering the DNC in Chicago, the city of Fred Hampton. And this case against you also evokes that period. And that's not an accident. Groups like yours are so rare today because this is what they did to those earlier groups. You're one of the few groups left standing. And something that struck me being at those marches, the left has this self-loathing, I think, because they don't know their own history. oh, why is the left so disorganized? Why are their leaders so weak? By design. By design, because every group like yours was subjected to attacks like this. Could you speak on that a little
I
bit?
mean, I think that's absolutely true. I mean, you mentioned the 1960s, and of course, this is the period of terror. We had great, remarkable movements that connected all around the world. The African liberation movement was ubiquitous, but and you saw the U.S. government move against Nkrumah in Ghana in 66. They overthrew him. They killed Lumumba in 61. They were wreaking havoc. In 1967, October, after having wounded and captured Che Guevara, they murdered him. So it was just all around this country. And then inside the United States, in 1968 alone, I think something like 30 members of the Black Panther Party were killed, and more than 300 arrested during that period. And you mentioned Fred Hampton, because the Attorney General of the United States had declared that by the end of 1969, the Black Panther Party would be destroyed. And of course, December 4th, 1969 is when the FBI and the Chicago police conspired, and they went into this house in West Monroe in Chicago, December 4th, 1969, and they executed Fred Hampton after having drugged him to make sure that he was helpless in his sleep. They executed him. The same a week later, they attacked the Black Panther office in Los Angeles, engaged in an hours-long gun battle there, because the Panthers had learned from what had happened in Chicago and had fortified the place so they could put up a more effective resistance. This is where you see the emergence of SWAT teams. These militarized cops, SWAT teams, come out of this process. And so people were being assassinated because it had the so-called struggle of Black people in this country had matured beyond this whimpering desire to join with America, to integrate into it, and was talking an anti-colonial discussion. In 1966, people were talking about Black power, talking about a movement for power is a movement against colonialism. The Panther Party spoke eloquently about colonialism. Frantz Fanon was out there, colonialism, and the whole anti-colonial movement had grasped the world. And so this is what came under assault. 1964 was really important. I want to just say this, if I may, because 1964, a Mississippi Freedom Summer, so that Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, was the main organizer for that. It was really important because the media had gotten bored of the civil rights movement, Black people just being killed, etc. And Mississippi was like the headquarters, if you will, of the just gross, open, naked kind of oppression that we were experiencing. And so SNCC decided to do the summer project, the Mississippi Summer Project, Freedom Summer in Mississippi, and invited people from everywhere, and especially young white people who joined into this. Because they knew if white people came, the media was going to come, their mama, et cetera, their daddies, et cetera, were going to be concerned, and that would bring some more attention to what was happening to Black people in Mississippi. And sure enough, on the first day of the Freedom Summer in Mississippi, by the way, that's the process that thrust Fannie Lou Hamer into prominence for people outside of the movement who had never heard her before. This is a thing that when she was participating in the 1964 Democratic National Convention, similar to, I guess, what they've just been doing in Chicago at this time, that Fannie Lou Hamer, when she was testifying, trying to prevent the Mississippi the Mississippi regular lynch mob party have the credentials to represent the people of Mississippi. The Freedom Democratic Party, organized by SNCC, was trying to represent the people there. And the liberals had said that they were going to help with this. And of course, the chief liberals like Lyndon Baines Johnson, like Hubert Humphrey, like Mondale, all of them double-crossed the people. But that was the Freedom Summer that people went in and organized throughout Mississippi to prepare for that, to go to the National Democratic Convention. And we have a Freedom Summer here, right now in St. Petersburg, Florida, where people have been coming into St. Petersburg, Florida. We're knocking on doors. We're talking to people in the community. We are organizing people, putting up posters and everything everywhere, because we want the world to see this. This cannot be silent or dark kind of lynch mob. People need to see what is going on. We have nothing to hide. They didn't have to steal all of this terabytes from our computers. They didn't have to do. All they had to do was read our newspaper. All they do is it's on. We have open Zoom conferences. We have open, live streams such as this happening on a regular basis. They didn't have to do that stuff. So we're organizing people on the ground because we want the world to know what happened. And it's really interesting in terms of the Freedom Summer Mississippi 64 analogy now, because if you remember, they discovered on the first day of Freedom Summer in Mississippi, 3 persons had disappeared. They were Schwerner and Gutman, 2 white people, and Cheney, an African. And it's really interesting because what we have facing trial right now are 2 white people, Penny Hess and Jesse Neville, and 1 African, me. And so it's worth noting, I think. But anyway, there's a lot of history here, and we want to build a movement because I didn't get involved in this struggle to keep me out of prison. I got involved in this struggle because of the oppression of African people, because the nature of this social system that bleeds the people, takes everything that looks like freedom, humiliates people on a regular kind of basis, and where the state has become this overbearing, intervening entity openly now. And so that's the thing that we are challenging. And that's the thing we're asking everybody to challenge through. I'm not trying to make anybody else an African internationalist. I do my work in our communities. We do that to try to organize African people. And we're not asking Kamala or Joe to become anti-colonialists. We're not saying anything like that. But what we are saying is this, that you put forth this, you wrote the Constitution. I'm talking about the people who run this government, who run this system. There's such a thing as a Bill of Rights that was created to protect the rights of white people. And I say that without hesitation because when the Bill of Rights were adopted by the U.S. Congress in 1791, Black people were under the lash. It was not written for us. It was written for a people who had escaped tyranny, a monarchy, and what have you, the divine right of kings, where there were no rights at all, and guaranteed there were rights. They made this Constitution, and to top it off, they created this Bill of Rights that included free speech, freedom of assembly, freedom from unreasonable search and seizures, and all this kind of stuff. And that's what I'm saying, that when they attack me, they are not attacking me. They're attacking free speech. They're attacking the Constitution. And that means the Constitution for whom it was written. Because as you know, every day in the life of Black people, you hear these executions going on by cops on a regular basis. That's what George Floyd was all about. All of this stuff happened to us naturally and normally, in terms of huge number of African people in prison. So the thing is that they're coming for you and they attack me. It's your free speech that's under assault. And that's the thing that we want people to be aware of, because I think they have nothing in terms of any kind of legitimate case against us. They have captured all kinds of materials, documents, terabytes, or however else is characterized of materials, videos. They've taken public studies that I've done on social media and all of that stuff that we're looking at to represent some. They offered a $10 million bounty for anybody who can come up with evidence against us and what have you. And now 2 years later, we're going to trial. And I'm here to say that their assumption is not that they have any evidence against us, but that they can use some words that we may have said this time or that time, and they're using Russia, and they're using Black people with the assumption that it's enough without evidence, that there's enough prejudice against Black people, against Russia, against radical ideas, that a jury will convict us. And I think they're wrong.
Well, I interviewed Penny and your lawyer, Lenny Goodman, a few weeks ago. And the way he explained it to me was that the threshold of evidence necessary for even an indictment, which obviously that's passed, but much less a conviction, would have to be that you were, acting as an agent of a foreign government, meaning that it can't be like the threshold of evidence is not that you went to Moscow or that you had Russians speaking at events with you, but that you are working at the behest of a foreign power, which just, I mean, we got into the whole history of your movement last time you were on. It's just, it's absurd. I mean, it's absurd. You're a community builder in North St. Louis. Is that the threshold of evidence that would require a guilty verdict in a fair trial, at least?
That's the presumption in a fair trial. Yeah. But the thing is, we believe that if this case is based on the law, we are already victorious. But the problem is, if it were based on law, we wouldn't be indicted in the first place. That it's a political trial. That they have political objectives here to destroy the kind of organization we are. That the roles that we play in building movement, not just throughout the United States, but around the world, the connections we made to end the isolation and to join with the peoples of the world in opposition to a kind of social system that's predatory, that's parasitic and what have you. So if that's why it's really important for us to have this discussion and to tell people, we want you to read the indictment. Read the indictment. Read what they say they're charging us with. Read our response to it. Read the briefs that we put forward. But Leonard Goodman, who you just mentioned, brilliant brief that says these charges should be dismissed. Read what the state said in response. Just read this back and forth. We want to have an educated population so that you can know yourself. And we think that our strength lies in the people and the people being conscious of what the hell is happening to us. And again, it lies in our ability to force the state to confront basic democratic constitutional rights. And that's what we want the people. I don't want the people to get confused by the notion that we are trying to convert them into Black nationalists or to African internationalists, et cetera, et cetera. That's up to you. What I'm saying is we find ourselves in this really interesting kind of situation of having to convert many people into defenders of the Constitution that they're using as a basis for attacking us.
Right.
Well, and to that point, and I think that's really important, a lot of people will point out the things that they do overseas in other countries will eventually come back here. That's a practice run. And domestically, many people will say that about the Black community. Well, they do it to the Black community first. And, Tucker Carlson, who presumably is not a Black nationalist, recognized that. And he profiled you as very early on in this case, recognizing that threat to everybody. And since your case was brought, now they're going after the president of Telegraph. Now they're going after Elon Musk. Now, I'm not a fan of Elon Musk, but now how much more privileged and white can you be than Elon Musk?
Exactly.
So once they open that door, it's naturally going to continue. I want to show you a quick clip. This is the current VP candidate from the Democratic Party, emphatically stating or misstating his understanding of freedom of speech.
I think we need to push back on this. There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy.
Now, this man is standing for vice president, and he doesn't seem to understand the very first thing about the First Amendment. Now, free speech is a pretty unique thing in the history of the world, and it's even in some respects unique on Earth today. Do you think this broad assault we're seeing on freedom of speech, your case being one part of that broad assault, do you think this kind of presages the end of free speech in our societies?
I think that's the attempt. I was on it doing an interview along with Scott Ritter on yesterday, and his house had been raided by the FBI and what have you, and somebody asked him the question if he thought he was going to be indicted, and his response was that if we don't win this case, he's going to be indicted. They see this as the central case, and if you look at early on, we said that this is the canary in the mine. That if they can succeed in doing this, if they do this, and we saw all of these things coming, including Ritter and all these others that we are looking at. And the thing about Musk that I really appreciate your comment about that, and even Trump, they would pick someone that presumed to be unpopular with a large enough sector of the population to get the other sector of the population to unite in this assault on free speech. So I don't give a damn who it is. I mean, in my estimation, I have agency. I have the ability to organize, to win people to my views, my ideas. I think they're solid. And despite the fact that we can get put in Facebook jail and all these other things, I think our ideas are solid. I'm willing to debate Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and all of them because I think our ideas are solid. So the question of free speech is a fundamental right, and it's associated with freedom of thought as well. And in specifically in the case that we're dealing with now, I'm reminded, and you may have heard me, reference this before, but George Orwell, in 1984, the character makes the statement that who controls the past controls the future, and who controls the present controls the past. And that's what they're trying to do now, control the past. There was nothing else that happened. We had no agency. America did not. I am what they like to call as one of the immigrants. And the fact is, Black people here are not immigrants, we're captives. You can't erase that from history. You can't erase the fact that you talk about constitutional rights and all these freedoms that you just remarked on, but it turns out to be a freedom to repress. The indigenous people whose land that we are on right now, nobody even talks about the indigenous people, and they have a lifespan something like in the 50s. Nobody talks about that. African people, and they would rather not have this discussion. You got Leonard Peltier, who's been in prison for almost 50 years for defending the rights of the native people, etc. It doesn't even make it worth the mention, and just denied him parole the other day. So this is a critical question, and if they can, they'll take it away. But I'm convinced we're in the process now. We're building a really important kind of movement, because I was here in the 60s and I saw the United States government kill King, kill Malcolm X, and so many other folks. And then we didn't see a whimper. Fred Hampton, you didn't see any movement from the white left of mention here. But in this instance, they've been forced, when they come to get me in St. Louis, they had to come and get these two other white people, because these two white people have entered into this struggle on the side of the colonized people, which is their own side. And I think that makes a profound difference. And I think that's one of the reasons they had to be attacked. Also, like Schwerner and Goodman had to be killed to give a lesson to white people so that you don't step across this line as well. And we're building this whole movement, the anti-colonial free speech movement. It's got Mexicans, Filipinos, Black people, white people, all kinds of forces crossing the political spectrum, as you mentioned, from Tucker Carlson on one extreme, and then there are other forces, that's characterized as leftists on the other extreme. It's a magnificent movement. And so I'm saying that that's the kind of movement that we are building, and we're not being trapped into this situation of trying to make somebody a Marxist, a Trotskyist, a Stalinist, or a Black nationalist, etc. We bring in the struggle on the terrain of free speech that's supposedly fundamental to the whole ideology and philosophy of this country. So we want winning everybody we can. This is what this case is going to be around. We're not going to let them go anyplace else with it if we can help it.
Now, you mentioned how in 1964, Fannie Lou Hamer was undermined from within at the Democratic Convention. Now, a lot of people coming out of the Democratic Convention this year, the narrative among a lot of the left has been they changed into George Bush neocons.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at a video, and you have such a unique historical perspective. I want to get your take on this.
Well, first, I want to show this because this is an edited piece,
yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah, so you just want to say this is from Breakthrough News. They put together this montage. Sorry, go ahead.
Yep.
I will ensure,
I'm going to take it back.
as Commander-in-Chief, I will ensure America always has the strongest, most lethal fighting force in the world.
Vice President Harris has always championed America's support for NATO.
She's worked with President Zelensky to fight back against Russia,
Iran, North Korea, and especially China, watch closely.
Our vision is based on our values, the values that took us to the shores of Normandy and helped us win the Cold War.
She'll keep modernizing our military to support our troops.
She'll keep America's military the strongest in the world, the strongest ever known.
We are the damn United States of America. We lead.
Okay, so now on the one hand, you watch this and you say this is like a Bush era Republican convention.
I was just going to took the words right out of my mouth. That could have been the 2004 RNC.
Sure, but on the other hand, having the longer historical view you have, it was Johnson that escalated in Vietnam.
Yeah.
It was Biden that wrote the crime bill.
Yeah.
The Democrats have been Zionists since Truman.
Yeah.
So is it really a substantive change from your perspective, or is it an aesthetic change?
Well, I'm not sure how aesthetically different it is, but you've got some drag that's happening here, but it's not substantive. And the reason we say this also is, but from our perspective, the political and economic configuration of the world as we know it really began a long time ago with and we characterize this as a colonial mode of production. It's challenges, I know, like some views that people have who've characterized it simply as a capitalist mode of production. But the fact is that capitalism itself rests upon the foundation of colonialism. There would be no capitalism if it weren't for this territory that we are on right now, this which came from the colonial domination of the indigenous peoples, nations here, and the colonialism as it affected Africa. And that's how I got to be here. Didn't come here, looking for a better way of life, but we lost one as a consequence of coming here. So that's the reality that we're looking at. And what happened is that the narrative has changed so substantially, as we talked about, especially since the 1960s, that it looks like the fundamental difference is whether one is a Republican or a Democrat, or whether one is liberal or conservative. But all of it rests upon a colonial foundation of oppressed peoples around the world. And this oppression that I'm talking about, colonialism, when aspects of it, when the features of colonialism seeps into, and it does seep into, the general white population during times of crisis, that's what people refer to as fascism. Now something is happening as fascism. But it wasn't fascism when they killed George Floyd. It wasn't fascism. The French, the great anti-fascist French, while at the same time they're fighting German Nazis, they're controlling Algeria, they're controlling much of Africa and what have you, with no rights at all. It wasn't fascism. So what happens is that you've got a social system that's mounted on the colonial oppression of the vast majority of the world. And it feeds them. It provides all kinds of resources to the majority, but it's a parasitic relationship that's imposed on everybody else. And so at the moment, this thing begins it's all right. You can have liberals who protest. People call themselves leftists, Marxists, who can protest this person getting killed or this aspect of the problem, but they can't get to the essential question. That's the colonial question. Because if you don't deal with that, and that's why right now, as I mentioned, all these people who we saw Biden, we saw the Congress of the United States, the House get on one knee. They never, and of course this comes from Colin Kaepernick, who still doesn't have a job, but they get on one knee with African kente cloth from China on their shoulder and what have you, and they say stuff like Black Lives Matter. Doesn't change anything. So they can say that kind of stuff, but the substantive thing doesn't get touched. And that's the thing that challenges everything. The whole question, it offends me so much. I look at my case, our case, and I know the whole history of our people here. But here's Leonard Peltier. Here's a native man. Here's a man whose land, and he's in prison on his own land. And he's in prison for trying to defend the people from the same folk who attacked me on July 29, 2022. That's a shameful thing, but they can only do that because they control the past. And he's not Tonto. He's not going Kimosapi and stuff like that. He's actually trying to stand up for the indigenous people here. You're talking about Mexicans. They stole half of Mexico in 1848. You've got Mexican people in cages in the southern border regularly. That's not a Trump issue. It's not a. It's all of them have participated in this crime against the people because that's colonialism. Colonialism feeds liberals and right wingers alike. And the objective is for all of us to unite to overturn a system that's shameful, that bleeds us, that takes our resources, that makes enemies of us. We, the people, are becoming enemies of each other, really struggling to protect the interests of Musk and Zelensky and the rest of them who are sucking our resources and sucking out, and they do horrible things. So that's what we're looking at, and we're saying that we can't say what the outcome of this trial is going to be. We think we know we got a strong case. We know we can't find any better lawyers than we. We didn't do it. We are innocent of what they claim we did. But they collected, if I'm not mistaken, I forgot how many terabytes constitute something like 25 million books worth of stuff that they took from us in terms of videos and other stuff from computers. Can you imagine that? 20 equals 25 million books. That's what they, and so if they can't pull anything out of that, to tell the story that they want to, I mean, there's something wrong with them. But I really believe that if we do our job and clarify to the people that this is an assault on their rights, on the Constitution, on the Bill of Rights, on the First Amendment of the United States, if we can help people understand that, I think we will have made a major triumph here. And we haven't met anybody who likes the FBI. And, you got the FBI attacking. No, really. I mean, you meet people in grocery stores and whatever. You think the FBI, has been responsible for this thing. It has no prestige any more than the Supreme Court. The whole thing, the whole system is just riven with all kinds of contradictions and splits and things like that. So, yeah, I think that it's really critical that we can beat them back. I really believe that. That's why we have, as opposed to just simply being quiet and allowing them to tell their story and pursue this, that we want to bring the masses into this process. We want everybody to be here. We want everybody to see what's happening. We want everybody to see the documents associated with this case, because we don't have anything to hide. And if the FBI and the Justice Department were honest, all they had to do was knock on the door or take out a subscription to the Burningsville our newspaper, or just come to our events, go to our social media things, and you don't have to break into our places to steal this stuff. We're quite transparent. Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned all of the colonized people around the world.
Yeah.
Now, what really strikes me watching the DNC convention this week is how much the end point of their identity politics is to use people of the same identity as the colonized people to create the impression that there is no colonization going on, right? They use the melting pot image to cover that over. And in many respects, Kamala strikes me as what they've worked towards for decades. That is the end goal of the identity politics, right? To hide what they're really doing behind an identity that they've conditioned people to idealize.
Yeah.
And as long as you can hide behind that, you can hide what you're actually doing with the same exact policies as the old white dudes that were there.
Yes.
The speech that she gave could have come out of the mouth of George Bush.
Yes. I think that's the problem with racial, with anti-racism politics. It's not racism. That racism, even the concept, comes from colonialism. And to be engaged in that so they can put somebody black. I mean, look at this guy, Lord Austin. He is the chief military guy. He's the head of the Department of Defense. Look at the person who for the first time in history, they made an African Marine a 4-star general. They got an Air Force Marine African who's chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The military apparatus of the United States government at this point has a black face. and there's a reason for that,
Right.
because and like with Obama, African people, many were hysterically, overjoyed, and not just Africans, other people too. This is one of the things I really detest about what Obama and Harrison represent, because I truly believe, I always knew what Obama was, and we were first out of the gate saying that, but I truly believe that initially a lot of white people voted for Obama because they thought it was going to be different. They thought this black guy, electing this black guy, was going to make a difference. And that's that racial politics, because they just can't get past the complexion. That's been going on forever. If you look at the whole continent of Africa, every leader on the continent of Africa is black, but he works for white power. It's white power in blackface. That's what Kamala is. That's what Obama was. And it tricks a lot of people. And that's the kind of thing that we try to, provide some kind of education about. And so that characterized like a kind of identity politic, but it's that anti-racism stuff. And we move beyond that. SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, is I was a member of SNCC, and SNCC represented that bridge between a kind of anti-racism politic and a black power anti-colonial politic. It was SNCC who pushed forth that as a popular slogan that won people. And that came out of Mississippi. Also, the Mississippi Summer Project produced the Voting Rights Act, the Civil Rights Bill, the Voting Rights Act, the Black Power movement. All of that came from that project, that process. And that's what we are doing now. And SNCC was just a remarkable bridge, moving just from that anti-racism kind of politic to an anti-colonial kind of politic with the Black Power slogan. So that the thing is that people should be able to recognize moving beyond a certain kind of jingoism or nativism that presuppose that everybody has to be American or like America, or be like America, etc. And if you're not like America, then something wrong with you. That people have a right to be different and to have aspirations of their own. And if we can win people to recognize that even they, as individuals, demand the right to have opinions, the right to think, et cetera, without the intervention of the government. And I think more people are raising this question across the ideological spectrum. I think this is part of the huge debate that's happening in this country right now. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that point about, racism stemming from colonialism is really important because, racism is emotional, whereas colonialism is physical, right? Yes. It has to do with the actual interaction of people. And the point about, white power in black faces, I think that's a fascinating point as well. But I want to ask you a question about white power in white faces, meaning the power of Trump. That was what we call white power and white faces. So, because Trump was Russiagated, you're being Russiagated. Last time we spoke, you mentioned how the attacks on his free speech were concerning to you even before this case was brought because you had a feeling it could be used against people like you. And, right now, as this election season enters the home stretch, there's an ongoing debate amongst people on both the left and the right as to like the relationship between Trump and the permanent state and the deep state, the same state that's targeting you now. They targeted him before. On the one hand, they clearly have some kind of problem with him. Otherwise, they wouldn't be going at him as hard as they are. On the other hand, he more or less did their bidding the first time he was in office. And, if past his prologue...
He gave the Pentagon more money than they asked for.
It's like, how much do we trust him to do anything different next time? So what is your assessment of, like, his relationship to permanent Washington? How much do they actually dislike him and why?
I think that Trump was initially he was treated as comic relief by the rulers of this country. They gave him all kinds. They gave him free press, everything. They did not take him seriously, and I think he shocked them when he won, and I think he was shocked when he won that election. But part of what's happening is, at least since 1945, where we saw the emergence of this Atlanticist bloc, That's where the UN comes from, NATO
Right.
comes from, basic international trade laws, and
Right.
this bloc has dominated the world for the world capitalist system for a long time. And it had begun to get shaky over the last period. Even Obama was talking about the Asia pivot. And people who were Obama advisors were beginning to talk about how America had to lead from behind, that the day of the empire of imperial domination was over. And what began to happen was that Trump was associated with a lot of people who were interested in penetrating the Russia in terms of economically, especially where it came to petroleum, the gas, and all this stuff. That was a huge market that somebody thought they could penetrate if it were not for the antipathy that was politically displayed toward Russia. Because Russia was also seen as problematic for long periods of time, without having to go into that. And I think that that's why, look at who, when Trump first came to power, look at his campaign manager tied to Russia. The generals and stuff, Russia, investing in Russia, making money in Russia. I think
you're talking about Michael Flynn, Paul Manafort, that
all
crew.
these forces are associated with Russia. And then a problem was that the Democratic Party refused to accept defeat. You're talking about Trump and talking about January 6th. The Democratic Party refused to accept the fact that they had been defeated. So to say Trump didn't defeat us, Russia defeated us, and that became the line. And that became something for every day. If you look, you go back, and for the 4 years that Trump was at the helm, every day there were hit pieces coming from all of the bourgeois media. Now, and I have, Trump says some nasty stuff. I'm not a friend of Trump in any way at all. But you can't use me to attack free speech because of Trump. Who doubts the fact that these charges that Trump was facing were tied to the election campaign? Is there anybody who did not know that the Biden administration was using this to defeat Trump as a part of their election ploy? And of course, it got weaker as Biden became weaker in terms of being able to present the case for them for a number of reasons. And then Trump also, over a period of time, has begun to ally himself with other sectors of the bourgeoisie who smoothed them out, who's helped to develop the line. Even Bannon. Bannon is the first one who actually helped him to win this election by giving him some kind of political line that he didn't have before. He was just wildly out there. And so I do think that that other sectors of the bourgeoisie clearly moving in with Trump, because there's action that they can get out of this as well. And so that's an interesting kind of situation that we're confronted with. So I have no doubt that that much of what happened with Trump is a question of free speech. I mean,
well, that's actually the most interesting answer I've ever gotten to that question of anyone I've ever asked it.
Yeah.
Because it seems like what you're saying to me, and I never really thought of it this way, but I think it's a great point that, anyone who comes into power against the wishes of the people who usually get to choose option A or B, i.e. Barack Obama, Mitt Romney, anyone who disrupts that, they're going to demonize as foreign and just sort of use them as a proxy to wage this sort of post-Cold War, if you will. Right?
Yeah,
I mean, Sanders, they said the same thing about him. They said Russians are infiltrating Bernie Sanders' campaign. So it's not even about their relationship to Trump so much as their relationship to their own power. And anyone who gets in the way of that is a proxy for this foreign,
outsider
force who's coming in to sabotage our country. Yeah, I mean, I think that's very interesting. Yeah, it's very well put.
It's also really important because a lot of money, resources,
yeah,
contracts, oil, military forces, consolidated around this stuff too. It's not just ideas. Is that put into action, put into place? I mean, there's look, right now, China is the greatest economic force in the continent of Africa in terms of investments and what have you. That used to be the United States. That used to be France and all of these countries. China has pushed them out. They're not interested because China has a different idea, because what kind of resources, where are those resources going to be going to? Look at what we're faced with. You're looking at stuff like lithium, because lithium is not, China controls much of that, but you're talking cobalt. You're talking about coltan. You're talking about resources that's absolutely necessary to keep a modern kind of economy afloat and developing. You're talking about even the oil thing, even though the United States has the petroleum that it needs, etc. But to control the petroleum also is to control France. It's also to place limitations on what China can do, all of these forces. And so this economic factor is profoundly important. And all the ideas that we are debating and stuff rest upon the economic interest. Politics is simply concentrated economics. And most of us don't have any economics. So our politics are often pretty empty, but it's concentrated economics.
Well, we recently interviewed, speaking of economics, we recently interviewed economist Glenn Lowry, and we talked to him a little bit about the conservative Black intellectuals who will claim, and we talked a little bit about this last time, that the welfare state is aimed at creating dependency. And your group is very much against that, from what I understand. Do you think that's part of why they find you so threatening? Because they're going to such extreme lengths to take down your group. What is it about your group that upsets them so much?
But that's part of it.
Bring trumped up charges, forgive the phrase.
Yeah, I think that's part of it, because you've got a whole bunch of resources. Especially tied to the Democratic Party, especially Africans connected in power in the Democratic parties. They control poverty programs. They control all kinds of resources that requires Black people to be on our knees to be profitable, to be meaningful. They put together grants based on being able to service us. They are Robin Hood of a sort, which is nothing to brag about, because Robin Hood was the only one with a job. He's robbing from the rich to give to the poor. The poor don't change, the rich don't change, but Robin Hood is looting everything. And so the thing is that we believe that people should have agency and can have agency. Like I mentioned, we've created more than 50 some odd economic development programs. That's part of the tech. Because listen, you have to please come to St. Louis. I'm saying this to you, come to St. Louis and see what we've done. I think you get a better grip of what I'm talking about, because
we would love to.
You please come to St. Louis, and I invite all of our listeners to come to St. Louis, because the work that we've done there, and this is we've transformed much of North St. Louis. It looks like it has been bombed out. You go there, you see it, and we've put economic programs, we put housing for people, we built programs for Africans coming out of prison. We bought the housing to put them in there. We got African International job training program for them. This is done by my wife, who also was in the house when we came under attack. This is part of it, because if we can do it, we built a $150,000 basketball court in one of the most desolate communities in St. Louis. And this is because in every what they call urban community in this country, you see African children playing basketball in the streets, dodging cars and stuff. But we built a basketball, and not just a basketball, a state of the art. We spent $150,000 to build that basketball court there. So because somebody said, well, why would you build a basketball court? Yeah, because the children have to be able to see the sky. They have to be able to see beyond the limitation that's been imposed on them. They have to be able to aspire to something greater, etc. And this should be unacceptable living the way we live. And so, but we've created those kinds of things. If we could do it, and you know who helped us to do this? All these white people who believe in the reparations question. They made contributions knowing what it was they were contributing to. So they helped to buy a $150,000 basketball court. They say, this is our self-criticism for what we have participated in allowing America to do, and participate in America doing this. And there are other things like that. That's the problem, because now they can't we've broken this absolute unity of the white population with what they're doing to black people. They don't have that absolute unity anymore. And that's the kind of work that we've done that I think makes it a problem too, because now we're beginning to penetrate their communities. I mean, their neighbors, sometimes their relatives, sometimes sitting at the dining room table with them are people who are arguing for reparations and against genocide, against black people, and et cetera, et cetera. So this is a problem too. It's fraying the whole ideological assumptions that went into the founding of the United States itself.
So do you think there's some truth to the accusation that the liberal class wants to keep the black community broken and dependent?
Yeah, I think that what we characterize as neocolonialism, white power and blackface, I think that's liberal victory. I mean, the conservatives have been quite openly opposed, generally speaking, to that, generally speaking. But I think that's a victory for white liberalism. Kamala and these other guys, and there are people all around. I mean, there are people who have been characterized as progressives. And how was the group associated with AOS? What do they call this group?
You're talking about AOC. You're talking about the Democratic Socialists of America.
Yeah, but there's this characterization
DSA,
in that political thing, and you know, there are people who've been characterized in that way. They wouldn't touch this case with a 10-foot pole. They run from it like it's COVID.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, and I'm not calling any names, but some of them even in St. Louis, you know, and it didn't save them, you know, to run from this.
Well, to name one name, because she's not much of a name anymore, would be Cori Bush, right?
Oh,
because
Cori
she's out.
Bush.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
One final question, if I can, because it's so rare we get a veteran of these movements like yourself to ask for guidance because of the history that we're talking about. There are so few people like yourself around. When we were in Chicago, we went to a Workers' Strike Back meeting, which was run by Shama Sawant, and Jill Stein spoke. We get constantly the question from our viewers, what do we do? What do we do? Should we get involved in electoral politics? Should it be grassroots movement? How would you answer that question? Should they support electoral campaigns like the Green Party campaign, or like Shama's talking about having a conference in February to organize a workers' party? Should they stay outside of that system? What would your advice be from your long experience in this space?
I think all of that. I really believe all of that, because the big problem we have is not because of betrayal by the Green Party or Jill Stein or the alternatives. The big problem we have is that the vast majority of the people don't think there is an alternative to the Democrats and the Republican Party. Now, we didn't have this same contradiction in the 1960s when things were unleashed. You had members of the Black Panther Party running for office. You had Peace and Freedom Party. You had other people saying, we are the answer. We are the collective we. Are the answer, as opposed to the Democrats and Republicans. That's part of what it is that we're trying to create now. We're trying to create a collective we, that we don't even have to be in the same organization, but we believe that these are illegitimate alternatives, that there are other alternatives, and there's enough room here to. Jill Stein is going to be here on August 31st. She's going to
she is coming.
Yes, she's coming, and so. We'll be hearing from Cornel West. And the thing is, there's enough room here. The problem is that something like 20 or 21% of the African population represent the base of the Democratic Party. They're not in the African People's Socialist Party. They're not in the Green Party. They're in the Democratic Party, those who have not been chased into the Republican Party with Trump. We have to become the collective alternative. That's what we have to do. And we have to be able to tolerate each other and push forth. That's why we're trying to build an anti-colonial kind of free speech movement, an anti-colonial human rights movement, so that collectively we can do this thing and offer alternatives to what they are presenting right now. We've done it in the past. The movement has done it in the past. And we can do it again. It's just that when we act like the people who do not have better information, better analysis, and act like that there is no alternative between the Democrats and the Republicans ourselves. When most people say, should we go into electoral politics? Listen, let me say this. First of all, elections in this country are nonviolent contests between sectors of the white ruling class for control of the state for their own economic and political benefit. It's a nonviolent contest. That's what it's supposed to be. Sometimes when the crisis gets so deep, you'll see a Kennedy fall, it gets violent. You'll see a Nixon overthrown, it gets violent. You see that kind of stuff. It's a nonviolent contest. That's what it is. So that the rulers don't have to go to war with each other in order to get their cases. So they just purchase politicians. The politicians who say the right things, most of the presidential candidates have had lobbyists as their campaign managers from big corporations. So this is the thing that's been happening in the past. And so we're saying that we can contend with them. That and what you see with Trump is that the issue was not resolved with Trump in terms of who should control the state. The election didn't do it. That's why you had this discussion about the deep state. I was really appreciative of the discussion about the state at all, because nobody had talked about the state before as this entity that presides over the whole society, and et cetera. Now they're talking about deep states, right on, that's state. And so is a feature. So Trump got elected, but he did not have control of the state. So he was moving in that direction, trying to got generals, got all these people in place, trying to do this. Bannon, of course, is one of the main architects of this, it appears. And they're doing other stuff. Bannon, they're doing grassroots organizing. He said they're organized on a precinct level. They want to, this is Bannon characterizes himself as a Leninist. Did you know that? He calls
at one time. At one time. Now, does he?
Yeah. But he's not talking about he believes in socialism or communism, but he talks about in terms of organization, in terms of commitment and that kind of stuff. So they're on the ground. They're not just working, behind computers. Their friends are not measured by the numbers of people that they get on the computer. They're organizing in communities. They're organizing precinct level. Their objective is to make sure that the election outcome is determined by them, because they will control the cities where and their process, where the voting booths are going to be, what terms are set for them, who is a legitimate representative of this political party, that is to say, who's legitimately registered and stuff like. They want to take it from the bottom up. They got ordinary people who are involved in this process. That's how they're making this struggle. And the left wants stuff handed on a platter. They don't want to have to organize the people. They're afraid of the people and what have you. They even talk about the white people who are not with them, just rednecks and stuff like that. I want to go to Tucker Carlson. I want to talk to the rednecks. I want to talk to the white people, because I believe that if I have an opportunity to speak to them, I can win them to something in their own interest, and then we will be able to see that their interests and my interests are not that very much different. That's what we have to do. And anyway, I've forgotten the question that you raised with me that brought me into this.
Well, how to organize, how to move forward. But
yeah, I just think that first of all, I really believe, I hope that people come on August 31st to St. Louis, Florida. I think it's really important. We're going to pull together ultimately this kind of movement that I'm talking about that can cross the ideological and political spectrum. There are people who come in here who don't even like each other. I'm telling you, people who said they won't have anything to do with this campaign because this group is there, this person is there. That's how it started with folk like that. And there are people on here whose politics I don't like that much. But if we can come together like on a common trajectory, because none of us, I mean, look, the left hasn't even seized a parking lot. You know what I'm saying? So the point is to come together and build this power that can be a contending force. And we build it. You don't have to build it on craziness. You can build it on just the basic principles that the country is supposed to be built on. You got your politics, I got my politics. I know where I want to go. But I know that we have to defeat this oppression in order to go anywhere. We have to unite, that we have the right. I have the right. The white left used to be so opposed to me because I wasn't saying the black people were a part of an international or multinational working class that had to be under the leadership of et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm saying that I'm saying that the state has to recognize my right to have a different opinion. That's what the Constitution says. I believe in that. So anyway, I think it should come August 31st. I think we should be tolerant enough to see us as a collective alternative. We have to be a collective alternative. We have to be able to see ourselves as an alternative to what the Democrats and the others are doing to us. That's really important. I know that's not the kind of simplified kind of response, but I do believe that we have to have a much movement, and we have to dig in with the people. The people are the fundamental thing. Go where the people are. Recognize that people have real contradictions and assume the responsibility to try to explain the world as it really is, as opposed to what they're getting from Zuckerberg and all of these other forces about what the world is. Yeah, I know that's not
that
That
was
was a perfectly great answer.
Yeah.
And I want to put time here, put it up on the screen. Hands off, Chairman Omali. Yeshitela dropped the charges on the Uhuru 3. That is this Saturday, August 31st at 11 a.m. at the Uhuru House at 1245 18th Avenue South in St. Petersburg, Florida. And you can RSVP there by going to handsoffuhuru.org/march. Well, Chairman, it really is.
Here you go. A lot of people ask, what can I do? There's something you can do.
Yes.
You can go there, and from what the chairman says,
Yeah.
you might meet some people you disagree with, but you agree with them on this cause, right?
Damn
so that's
right.
a start.
Damn right. We have to kick the ass of the ruling class.
That's right.
The objective, yes.
And I got to say, as someone who has a nervous stomach all day when I drop my car off at the mechanic, wondering what kind of bill I'm going to get hit with, it is inspiring to see you handle this with the amount of grace that you have. If I were in your shoes, I would be a wreck. But you have tremendous poise, and I could say the same thing for your team. And best of luck to you. Obviously, we will be in touch throughout the process.
Don't worry, we keep with this podcast. We'll be in his shoes sooner or later.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Maybe we can become sellies.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
Thank you so much. It's really good to be with you. Thank you so much.
Please clap.